Hi guys, thanks for joining us. Welcome to this week's 5y5 with me, Ali Maxwell, and him, George Elliott. We are 5 Yards ambassadors, and if we feel perkier than ever before, that's because Tuesday's transfer window on 5 Yards was, George, a record-breaking window, the busiest that we've had since launch in November, and we are just full of beans, really, at how much people are getting involved on site, buying and selling players, and living 5 Yards.
Yeah, I mean, I can't... Normally, at this stage, I would look at the list of players and tell you some interesting ones. The list is so long that I can't even make sense of it at all. All I do know is that the players that we've spoken about on 5y5 are proving quite popular, Ali, which means there's a bit of pressure on us to step up. Rafinha had loads of buys last week. Eze got loads of action as well. Ivan Toney continues to be incredibly popular. All the 5y5 grads, shall we call them. And I really liked as well, because we get to see, obviously, behind the curtain. We were sent a list of all the holdings of all the players currently on 5 Yards. And the most owned player by absolutely miles is Finlay Corrigan. We would cover him on this, but I think the fact that neither Ali or I have ever seen him play means that we can't really do it justice to the Ipswich youth team player. But if he turns out to be an absolute superstar, then maybe 5 Yards won't exist in a couple of years because we'll be taken to the absolute cleaners. But yeah, you'd expect a lot of the names up there. Ivan Toney, Rodrigo de Paul, Makoko, Haaland, Adama Traore, Michael Olise, all towards the top end. I had a look at the players who currently have a 0% holding, who've been held in the past, and I've chosen a player who's currently unowned to talk about later in the EFL to see if I can get a bit of action going for him. But that's all to come. But we've also got a very special guest before you and I speak about our players.
We do have a special guest, as ever, delighted to be joined by him. But first, let me remind you, listener, viewer, whether you're on the pod or on the YouTube channel, firstly, please subscribe. Make sure you get these dropping fresh each week. But also, get involved with our scouting competition, which launched this month. It is a monthly competition with prizes to be won. In fact, first prize wins £10 million of 5 Yards currency, which, as you guys know, can take you quite far, depending on who you want to buy and add to your squad. It's very simple and easy to play. Just recommend players by clicking Scout on their player card on 5 Yards. You just have to fill in their current and potential rating, then suggest whether you think they're a buy or a sell. You can fill in the rest of the Scout report to give an in-depth view of why you're making your recommendation, and that will allow people to follow you as a scout and follow up your recommendations in the same way that maybe you do for us on this show. And yeah, prizes to be won. It's great fun writing proper Scout reports. It really gets you thinking about players and player development, strengths and weaknesses as well. But if you just want to do it quickly, you can just recommend a buy or a sell as well, and your profit or loss over the course of the month will be tracked. Top of the leaderboard will win 10 million, second 5 million, third 2.5 million, and fourth to 10th will all get £1 million in 5 Yards currency. So get involved in our monthly scouting competition. Head to the field on the 5 Yards site for more information. As for now, it's time to get into our 5y5, starting with our special guest who's about to replace me.
So delighted to be able to welcome Ben Bocsak, founder of First Time Finish, onto 5y5 today. Ben, great to have you on. People who are kind of eagle-eyed amongst the viewers will notice that my surname is Ellick, your surname is Bocsak, and it's good to be having a conversation between two men of Hungarian heritage talking about football. Ferenc Puskás would be proud if he could see us. But we're not talking about any Hungarians today. Going to be talking about a couple of players at RB Salzburg. So I'll hand over to you first and foremost. So who's the first player you've chosen to have a chat with us about today?
So it's Daka. I think no surprise for anyone who's followed or kept up to date with RB Salzburg recently. But yeah, I think he's 22, really exciting at the moment. He's scored 11 goals in 11 games in the Austrian first division, which is not bad. I think his goal per minute ratio is like 69 minutes, which is incredible, almost Haaland levels. He's a really good hold-up player. He's strong. He's fast. So he's got everything. He's almost a perfect striker. And I don't think he'll be at Salzburg very long.
Well, that's what we're going to come on to. I mean, he's up on 5 Yards at 48 million. So definite value there if he is going to be one of the elite strikers in world football. And for anybody who's listening to this who wants to learn more about Daka, I couldn't recommend more going to First Time Finish and reading Ben's profile on him, which is actually Daka himself's pinned tweet, which is pretty cool. I mean, you mentioned you don't think he's going to be at Salzburg very long. I mean, there is the obvious pathway of players going from Salzburg to Leipzig and then maybe on from there. But we've also seen players go straight from Salzburg onto other moves, whether that's Sadio Mane or Haaland himself. So where do you expect Daka to go from here, and how quickly do you think it'll be before he gets his move?
Well, I think the Bundesliga is a good route for any Salzburg player, and for any young player in general. You get time and patience. I don't know if Leipzig are in need of a striker at the moment. They have sort of like a unique system, so I don't know if they necessarily need Daka, especially when they got Hwang in last summer. So I think personally, I feel like he's one of those players who's ready-made for the Premier League in the sense that he is very good physically. And I think in January he was linked with West Ham, which would have been interesting to see that happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like he's someone who I could see play in the Premier League, and then obviously at 48 million, it's not a bad investment if he's coming to the Premier League, and I really believe he can be successful in the Premier League. Like recently, I think he gave an interview to the BBC where he said he wants to be as good as Salah, Aubameyang, and Mane. So that's
not too bad.
a good indication. And when and it's not just him. When I spoke to his coach, he said Lee Cavanu, who coached him at Cafe Celtics, he said he believes that Daka can be the Samuel Eto'o of this generation. So another high praise there.
It's interesting when people write scout reports on 5 yards, there's a whole section down to their mentality, and reading the piece you wrote about Daka, it's very clear that everybody who's worked with him thinks he's got that part of that mindset is ideal for being a success.
Absolutely. I think he's someone who he's been in Zambia. He's been known since he was 16. He's played in the national team since he was 16, and there were sometimes the pressure was too much, but like he was booed in a Zambian Super League game.
I was amazed by that.
Yeah, and but he's someone who's been able to learn to deal with that pressure, and I think that has put him in good stead for the future.
Really interesting. 22 years old, 48 million on 5 yards, and the one. I was watching some clips of him today, and there are two players, because obviously he's got the finishing ability and he looks like a very, very good footballer as well, playing crossfield balls and stuff well, but it's that stride, when he gets going and he's running onto the ball, Thierry Henry, Kylian Mbappe, and then Daka, it's that long stride where he just seems able to coast past players without making it look any kind of effort whatsoever, that really made him exciting to me. And now we're going to talk about his strike partner, Saiku Koita, from a Zambian to a Malian. And firstly, tell us about Koita, what he brings to this strike force at Salzburg, and how he differs in style and ability. He's up at 40 million, so 8 million lower than his strike partner.
Yeah, so he's 2 years younger as well, and I think he's not a traditional number 9. He's always sort of plays as like the striker behind Daka, not a number 10, but sort of a supporting striker. And I think what I like, striker, what I like about him is just he doesn't have as much pace, but he has this dribbling ability that he can just coast past players. He also has the awareness to pick out passes, which is really unique for a striker. He gets almost as many assists as goals, which I think really makes him stand out. And on top of that, he's quite short, but he stands his ground physically too. Like when you watch him in the Champions League against Bayern Munich and stuff, he's never been out-muscled or anything. He's always been able to keep up with the physical side of the game as well.
And in terms of links to him away from Salzburg, I mean, I saw that he had quite a difficult time when he first went to Austria. He struggled, I think it was at Liefering, who are the support club to Salzburg, and had to go out on loan to Wolfsberger, where he actually found his feet and then kind of stepped up to the plate. Is the feeling, unlike Daka, that maybe he needs more time playing first team football at Salzburg before making that step up?
Yeah, definitely. I think he was always a wonder kid in Mali. If you watch him at youth tournaments, at like the under 20, under 17 World Cups, he always stood out. But I think with him is I can't see him dominate, be like the primary number one in any European like top 5 league at the moment. I can't see him be that man who teams will rely on to get goals. So I think he needs time to develop himself as a player more. And I think, when Haaland left, Daka stepped up and became the number one guy at Salzburg. And I think now Daka will leave inevitably at some point in the future. And then I can see Koita stepping up and being that number one, or at least trying to be.
I mean, let's say that both players listen to 5x5, which I'm sure they do, and they give you a call, Ben, and they say, Ben, we heard what you got to say, we really liked it. Can you please choose where we go and play football next? What clubs would you pick out for now being good fits for both Daka and Koita?
That's a tough one.
I mean, Daka's a Liverpool fan, isn't he? So he'd be upset with you if you didn't choose.
Personally, I'm a Liverpool fan, so I would love to see him come to Liverpool. I think that would be a good move. But equally, I feel like West Ham could have been a good move. If there was genuine interest, I'm surprised that didn't happen. I would have loved to have seen him link up with Souček, and because he's quite good aerially. West Ham tend to be a counter-attacking team, so I feel like he could have suited that play. With Koita, I feel like if he's going to go anywhere at the moment, maybe like a French league, like a Lyon or somewhere like that, where he'll still be able to play Champions League or Europa League football, but just less intense than a Bundesliga or a Serie A.
And before we finish, if you had to fast forward a couple of years, say 3 years, who do you reckon will be worth more on 5 yards between the two of them?
I think Daka for sure. I feel like he's more a complete player. I love Koita. He's very good creatively, and I think he'll be a good player as well. But I think Daka just has a high ceiling.
And then just before we do go, given that we are both Hungarians having a chat, how good is the man behind you on the door?
Just amazing. I can't wait to see him back. I'm gutted he won't be playing against Liverpool. But I can't wait to see him back from his injury and seeing him at the Euros, hopefully doing well and getting at least a point. I'll be happy with the point with the group that we have in that Euro.
Fair enough. I can tell you're more loyal to your roots. My watching of the Hungarian national team only comes once England have been knocked out, and that's never happened before. So we'll see what comes. Yeah. Ben Bocsak there. Do follow him on Twitter and check out First Time Finish as well. Some really good stuff on there. And if you want to learn more about Daka himself, then do that. Cheers, Ben. We'll speak to you soon. So thanks very much to Ben there, founder of First Time Finish. Do check it out now. And I am pretty excited about the future of those two lads at Red Bull Salzburg. I don't think they're going to be there for too long, but I have a feeling they're going to be added to a few squads pretty soon, those of you watching and listening. Now, Ali, on to you. So that's 2 of our 5x5, 3 players to come. And I feel like I know you pretty well. So when you told me you wanted to cover this player, given you're somebody who likes to unearth gems, you did that weird Football Manager thing with San Marino where you could bring through San Marinese players and they had to be youngsters and all that stuff. You're all about the youth development. But then I suppose you are after a bit of a bargain as well. But this player, it doesn't come much bigger.
Oh, that San Marino Football Manager save is a story for another episode, I think. Yeah, I surprised myself, to be honest. I woke up on Tuesday morning buzzing for the transfer window to open at 9 o'clock. And I decided just to play the game a little bit differently. There's so many different ways of playing 5 yards, of course, and mostly I'm playing a long-term game based on those that I perceive to have a bright future in the game, to go beyond where they are now and for me to profit in the long term. But this week I kind of set myself a task more than anything to see if I could make some short-term money, George, on an older player, to see if this was a way of making money on 5 yards. And I'm not going to risk a lot on this at all. I've only bought a small percentage, but it's about trying to find more ways to beat the game, to beat the scouts, basically. So, on Tuesday, I bought a portion of Robert Lewandowski because I want to cash in, George,
Ballon d'Or winner-elect.
I want to cash in on the upcoming Champions League knockouts. As we know, Champions League performance pay dwarfs everything else. £650,000 for a win that you start in, for a goal, for an assist. It's just clearly the creme de la creme for 5Y. And since we launched, there haven't been many Champions League games because it was just at the end of the group stages. So I'm really excited about the Champions League knockouts. And I've bought I've bought Robert Lewandowski, 5 Yards' premier PP machine. The joint most in the world this season with Bruno Fernandes, and the most in the world last year as well. He got 24.9 million in performance pay last season, 18.9 of which, that's about 70%, came from his Champions League returns. An astonishing 15 goals, 5 assists and 9 wins. Those were insane numbers, the likes of which we really haven't seen before outside of Messi and Ronaldo. Now this season he's got 9.6 million in performance pay, of which 5.2 is from the Champions League, so just over 50%, 5 wins, 3 goals and 0 assists. Lewandowski's current price on 5 yards is £54 million. He dropped 3 million back in December, which reflects the fact that older players, and Lewandowski's in his 30s, do lose their value on 5 yards, sometimes quite dramatically, and it's really good to know that when you're playing the game. Because their value is set based on what the scouts think their future performance pay will be, and their ability to earn performance pay gets more and more reduced the older they get, for obvious reasons, they can lose value quickly in a way that might surprise you. It might not be linked to form or anything to do with their team, but purely that PP potential. Now, I'm hopeful Lewandowski won't take another hit in the next month or two, unless Bayern are eliminated in the round of 16 against Lazio or the quarter-final. And I guess that's why this strategy is risky, I've got to be honest, and that's why it's more out of interest for me than anything else. I'm pretty bullish, though. I think outside of Bayern and City, the Champions League is pretty weak this year. The European elite is very small, and I'd love to see those two meet in the final. Regardless, I think Bayern can steamroller their way to at least the semi-finals. Lazio, a good side, 5th in Serie A at the moment. They didn't keep a clean sheet in the whole of the group stage. They've conceded 3 or more goals 5 times in Serie A this season as well. So I'm hoping that Lewandowski could really cut loose in the round of 16 and get this bye off to a good start with a lot of PP just in 1 or 2 games. And I think, based on my belief that Bayern are likely finalists, based on the fact that Lewandowski is the best PP machine that exists in world football, that he could get, in the next 10 weeks, around 4 Champions League wins, 5 goals. I'll chuck an assist in there as well. I'm aiming for 10 PP returns in the Champions League for the next 10 to 12 weeks for Lewandowski. That would be £6.5 million in PP. That's 12% total of his current value of 53 million. So I'd hoped for some extra as well, of course, in terms of the Bundesliga, where he is basically scoring in every game. He's currently averaging 230k in PP per match in the Bundesliga. So maybe I could squeeze another 2 million out of him in the rest of the season in the Bundesliga. So I'm hoping for, or planning for really, £8.5 million in PP from now till the end of the season, which would be a really good percentage of his buy price of 53 million. And then I'd hope to get out. I think that this answer and me telling you about this is just, for me, it was a way to show how many different ways there are to play 5 yards. There's obviously risk here. There's a lot of me that's a little bit nervous about this. It's not how I would normally play, but I'm just seeing if I can make a quick buck this way over the next 3 months. The best case scenario is that he gets 15% of his value in PP in the next few months, which I bank, at which point I can sell and take the profit. The worst case is he gets injured or fires some blanks, buy and get knocked out, and his price gets slashed, meaning my asset loses some value. That's what it's all about. And this is the sort of thing that makes me feel very alive, Georgie, in 5 yards terms.
Good.
And gives me a reason to cheer on the Champions League favourites without feeling like a glory supporter as well. So I'd be interested to see if other people have looked down this route in terms of 5Y strategy and what they think about it. But that's it for me on Lewandowski. George, I gave you a scouting mission this week for 5Y5, and I wanted you to tell me about an under-the-radar, undervalued championship talent. Because we all know the big ones. We know Elise, we know Tony, we know Joao, who's just gone up at 6 million. Who's maybe a little under the radar?
It's the curious case of Benjamin Brereton is the one I'm going for here, because he's a player who, he's up on
gets
5
younger
yards
as he gets older.
He actually looks incredibly old for a 21-year-old. He's up on 5 yards at 13 million. He's one of the guys that I mentioned earlier who currently is unheld. Nobody has any part of Ben Brereton at the moment. He, for those who don't know much about him, he was playing regularly at Nottingham Forest a couple of years ago. He's an attacking player. He moved to Blackburn for a reported £7 million, which seemed like a very weird move at the time, going for quite a lot of money to a team who were kind of lower down on the food chain to Forest. And he had a really difficult start at Blackburn as well. He didn't really... I think when you're a club and you spend multi-millions of pounds on a young player, a young attacking player, you're expecting fireworks straight away. And that didn't happen. I spoke to Andy Watson, who is a Blackburn fan, who is part of the 5 Yards family. He's part of our scouting team today. And he kind of said exactly the same to me. He said he came with a big price tag. He didn't fulfill it early on. And he kind of looked back at the first lockdown as being when Ben Brereton finally started doing it in a Blackburn shirt. And this season, we've seen him get 3 assists and 3 goals so far in the Championship. So he is that kind of player where he's going to get you goals and assists when he does play. And he also said that it was the change to a 4-3-3 that really brought the best out of Brereton, playing on the left-hand side of the 3. Very much not in the mould of your normal winger. He's not quick. He's not somebody who looks to kind of drift inside off the ball. He's very, very direct. He gets on the ball. He drives at goal. He looks to play passes that will split the defence. And his partnership with Adam Armstrong has been really, really fruitful. I asked Andy, I said, do you think part of the reason why Armstrong's goals have dried up a little bit is because Brereton struggled for fitness and been out of the team? And he said, down kind of to variance as well, but certainly the relationship that those two have has been so impressive. And even, spending today looking back through the clips of Brereton, so many chances he's put on a plate for Armstrong this season, which Armstrong hasn't finished as well. And you look at the stats, if you look at the Championship, per 90, the only person who creates more chances than Brereton in the Championship is Emi Buendia. When you write a scout report on 5 Yards, there is a paragraph on physicality. And I think for Brereton, that is almost the most troubling part when you're trying to assess where he's going to be in the future. Because here is a guy who's 21 years of age. He's played over 100 Championship games. He's having his most productive season currently possible that he's had so far. He struggles with injuries, which is obviously an issue, but he is not built like a 21-year-old. He is a big guy. You look at the way he's built. He reminds me of someone like Bradley Johnson, where he's stocky, he's got that physicality, he's over 6 foot tall, and he's not particularly quick. If you look back at the highlights of him from back in his Forest days, he was much leaner. He had that kind of yard of pace to get past players, but didn't have the strength. And I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen here, because if he continues to fill out the way he is at the moment, when he's 25, 26, it's basically impossible to see him continuing to be a wide player. You'd think he's going to have to either use that passing ability in a more central role, or he's going to use his technical ability and his strength to play up top, maybe in a 2 with a nippier striker like Armstrong himself. As a creator, he is incredibly exciting. And I think, that what you're looking for with 5 Yards in terms of PP with goals and assists, he certainly has that. Rovers Chat, in partnership with 5 Yards a couple of weeks ago, ran polls on some of the Blackburn players and where fans of Blackburn expect those players to play. And interestingly, the majority of people thought that Brereton would end up as a top half Championship player, which would suggest that the 13 million isn't necessarily a buy. But where I think the angle maybe is here is you've got a team of stars at Blackburn. You've got your Harvey Elliott's, you've got your Adam Armstrongs. Those are the guys who are making the headlines. But I think clubs who are trying to be a little bit smarter with their recruitment might look a bit deeper and see that Brereton is actually very, very important when he plays games. It's the fitness here that's going to be the issue. Now, 5 yards is, you're looking for value, but with 5x5, we aren't necessarily here as like a tipping show. We are here just to talk about things going on. And I would probably say with Brereton, it's worth keeping an eye on. He is somebody who, if rumours start circulating about where he could go to, or if Blackburn make that step up into the playoff picture and could be a Premier League team next season, he is somebody who could very, very quickly go up in value. I wouldn't be jumping on yet. I'd want to see how his injuries develop and also how his game develops. But yeah, certainly today, I mean, I've always been a fan of his, especially from the Forest days. It's been disappointing to see him struggle to make an impact initially at Blackburn. But watching some of the kind of defence-splitting passes that he can play and his ball-striking ability, there's a serious player in there. And I'm just excited, or just intrigued really, to see what kind of a Ben Brereton rather than Bren Brereton we're going to see in a couple of years.
Yeah, he's a fascinating player. I did some videos for the EFL Awards 3 years ago, 2018, maybe 2017 actually, and I made a video where I interviewed Ben Brereton. He won Apprentice of the Year in the Championship, and he was banging in the goals for Forest's youth team. He had stepped up to the first team. He'd scored a few goals, including a winner live on Sky against Villa when I think he was 17. And he was, he's considered to be one of the most exciting young goal scorers, certainly within Championship reserve and youth teams. And now we're seeing a 21-year-old who, as you say, is a great creator. The second most chances created in open play per 90 in the whole of the Championship, and he's played slightly reduced minutes to some players, but that really stands out because physically, as you say, and the style of his play and his technique, he doesn't fit the bill of like an archetypal high volume chance creator, but that's there in the numbers, and that's where data scouting can be really valuable to allow us to get past our own sort of biases. It's proper Moneyball stuff, isn't it? We're trying to look past just the physique and look at what he's actually doing on the pitch, and as you say, that passing ability really does stand out very much. A completed scouting mission. I'm very pleased with the with what you've done there, George. I'm going to talk a bit about some new players going up on 5 yards this week. I guess the most eye-catching ones at the very top of the sport: Rodri and Gundogan, Man City players leading the Premier League, looking to go deep into the Champions League. Gundogan especially will be worth a look, won't he, given his goal-scoring form. Kabak, the new Liverpool centre-back, he's going up on 5 yards. If you know about Kabak, if you think you've got a good steer on him and his game and where he could be, do get involved and write a scout report. Put your opinions down on this player. And then other players, Joe Aribo of Rangers, always a favourite of ours when he was playing for Charlton. Luke Shaw of United, as well as a 17-year-old United starlet called Joe Hugill, formerly of Sunderland, now of Manchester United. If you follow the United youth teams, let us know your thoughts. Write a scout report about Joe Hugill. I'm going to have a very close eye on the price of Championship loanee Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. He plays for Luton on loan from Leicester, and he's been a player that we've really enjoyed this season in the Championship. And when I was thinking about him earlier, even if it might be a bit of a knock on us, George, I think maybe we haven't given him the credit that he deserves, partly because of the team that he plays for in Championship terms. Although we like and respect Luton a lot and certainly admire the journey they've been on in the last 5 years, they've been an unfashionable side this season. They've not been in a relegation battle, so we've not talked about them particularly in negative terms, but they really haven't troubled the top half of the table, the playoff places particularly, very mid-table-y, and so maybe not a team that we've delved into as deep as some of the others. But I think if Dewsbury Hall was playing for a top half side in the Championship, he'd be being talked about way more than he is already. He'd certainly have more assists, he'd have had more shooting opportunities and scored more goals. He's got 2 nice goals from range, both in wins, important wins as well. But regardless of hype and people talking about you, I think for his football development, this has probably been the perfect loan. He has been a key man for Luton Town. He would have he would have learned so much in this Luton side, being developed under Nathan Jones, but just through pure game time and responsibility in midfield, responsibility to create, to move the ball from middle third to final third, which is somewhere that he excels. He can carry the ball as well. He's got a really high dribble success rate. Now, he hasn't got the high volume compared to wide players, so I wouldn't necessarily say it means he's the best dribbler in the Championship, but when he runs with the ball, he does so effectively, he doesn't lose it. And for someone in that central midfield position, that is such a huge skill, isn't it? Being able to carry the ball through the pitch, as well as being a clever passer. He naturally looks to play into the final third, into attacking players. He's shown an eye for goal as well, arriving late, edge of the box, finishing into the corner, and takes good set pieces. So there's a lot to like here. Physically, he's okay. I wouldn't say he's absolutely standout, but he can certainly handle himself. And it's just hard to find any obvious weaknesses with this player. I also think positionally and with his role, he's kind of suited to any modern midfield, whether you're playing in a 2, in a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1, or in a 3, as he is at the moment, a lot of the time in a 4-3-3. He would have played in a diamond formation as well. So there's just a lot to like, a lot that will be catching the eye. His parent club, Leicester, will know all about him. They, I think, out of most Premier League clubs, have really good pathways for their players. Whether it means they end up in Leicester's first team, I'm not sure. But they've developed a lot of good professionals in the game recently. And Dewsbury Hall will be well known there. He's been there for a long time. He's 22, so he's a bit of a late starter here. On loan at Blackpool last season was his first taste of senior football in League One, aged 21. And yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued, George. A little birdie in the scouting team tells me he'll be going up on 5 yards at £12 million. Now, for comparison, another technical ball-carrying lefty central midfield player in the Championship is Josh Da Silva. He's 17 million, so he's 40% more expensive than Dewsbury Hall. And the question is, who's in a better spot to start playing Premier League matches from next season? Maybe one, or maybe both of them. You know, Da Silva will probably be there with Brentford or signed by another Premier League club if Brentford don't get promoted. So Dewsbury Hall's kind of up in the air. Contracted to a Premier League club until 2024 in Leicester. But that's an incredibly talented side, one that will be hard to break into. Crucially for him, not impossible though. Players like Harvey Barnes, James Justin, Hamza Chowdhury to an extent as well, they show that Leicester and Brendan Rodgers have no issue blooding young players if they're good enough, if they apply themselves. And everything that's happened this season at Luton will be very encouraging for that Leicester hierarchy. So it's a fascinating one for me, this. In 12 months' time, we might look back and see a player playing Premier League football and say that 12 million was a snit when he first went up in February of 2021. Or we might look back and he might not have moved on a ton. He might be on another loan or kicking around the Leicester fringes. It's a really tough one to call. But I would say if you don't know much about him, watch some clips, enjoy Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, and see if you want to get involved with him. He's one of many new players going on 5 yards this week at £12 million. Right, I think that's quite enough of this week's 5x5. We've been all across Europe, talked about some of the stars of the future, the current number one PP monster on 5 yards in Robert Lewandowski, and a couple of EFL players as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and on the podcast app that you're listening on, and join us again next week on the 5x5. And don't forget, get involved with the scouting competition, and this week's transfer window opens 9 a.m. on Friday. See you there.